Hello there, I'm Abhay Agarwal. You are watching Essentially Sports. Over the past few weeks, we have got you some players, some high profile managers, and people who work behind the scenes from the MLB on America's premier sports destination. Continuing that trend, we have with us a senior pitching coordinator for the Chicago Cubs, Casey Jacobson. Welcome, Casey. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me on.
So, Casey promoted to the senior pitching coordinator over a few years by the Chicago Cubs. How has been the challenge so far?
It's been quite a challenge. I mean, it's my first job in pro ball was coming in with the Cubs here and getting used to this landscape was certainly a challenge. Having come from college and the private sector, so it was a new thing, and you learn quite a bit quickly, I think, which is great. And I've had some really good mentors and some really good people to work with, and I think it's been really fun to see the progress that we've been able to make, and some of the good things that have been going on in player development with the Cubs. But certainly, a lot goes on behind the scenes in terms of hard work and systems being built, and trying to put our players in the best position to be successful. Ultimately, is the goal there.
So, for the naysayers out there, can you please explain what does a pitching coordinator do?
Yeah, so it's an interesting kind of blend between like your traditional coach, which I think people are more familiar with, and maybe somebody who is managing a department. You're kind of playing that middle manager group where you do some of the on field tasks, but you're also trying to build out processes and systems behind the scenes. So when it comes to plan building and putting together presentations or development plans or department initiatives or anything like that, you kind of play on both sides of that fence. And then you're also working one on one with players. You're going to bullpens or watching them in games, sit in the dugout, kind of seeing that side of things as well, and trying to really stitch together the big plan, like the vision stuff that comes down from maybe where the front office is, where your directors are, and then what's actually happening on the field. So you're trying to make sure that the vision is being executed, and that the players are getting the things that they need to get to ultimately get results.
So, Casey, you have been associated with the Cubs for over 4 years. There has
Mhm.
to be something special between you and the club. So, can you please shed some light on that?
Yeah, I mean, my first year was in 2020, so it was a little interesting introduction when we ended up with the canceled season with everything that went on. But I think the big thing for me was being sold on the vision that was being kind of imagined, the things that they were trying to do. As again, there was a little bit of adjustment period in that 2020 frame, 2019, 2020, and beyond, of really becoming player centric, trying to be on the front edge of some of the things that are available from a development standpoint for our players, developing their skills and things of that nature. But really doing everything that we can to like put the player at the center, or make sure that every player in the organization matters. Um, I think it's from the outside, before entering pro ball, there's kind of the stigma that only the prospects are the ones that get resources or that matter and things like that. And I think as I was joining the organization, there was a very strong push to make sure that every player, whether he's the top ranked prospect to the guy that's not getting any kind of love or notoriety from the public space, that each one of them matters the same, and that we need to treat them as such. And that really spoke to kind of what I think is important. I think it's important to be able to treat everybody with the same amount of respect, the same amount of attention, the same amount of care, regardless of whether or not they got a big signing bonus when they joined the organization. Like they're still part of this family, and we need to treat them with the same amount of respect that they deserve. Because they're putting in all that effort to make their dreams come true, and like it's our job to match that and to try to push them forward and at least cultivate the environment that gives them that chance. And so being able to see that culture be created early on, it has definitely made it a place that you want to keep working and that you want to keep building, because you get to see the things come to fruition. Some of those goals met by those players, some of those kids get a chance to live out their dreams by making it to the major leagues.
So great, great to hear that. And a bachelor's degree in physics and a full-time career in baseball. These things are really unheard of. Tell us more about this partnership.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I had originally planned to get a degree in mechanical engineering. Was not going to pursue baseball and myself, like going to play. I was just had a weird relationship with baseball at the end of my high school career. I wasn't very good at it, and my coaches didn't think that I was going to be a very valuable part of the team. So I ended up actually not playing my senior year of high school. And at that point, I thought baseball was going to be done in my life. I was going to go get a degree in engineering. I was going to try to become a mechanical engineer and kind of move on. But again, I had some really good mentors, some people that opened my eyes to what was possible, even though I wasn't getting recruited or I wasn't playing, that I was more talented than maybe I thought. So that gave me some confidence, and I played in the summer just for fun. I ended up walking on at college and went to the schools that I could actually play at, because again, I wasn't amazing. I was good enough to play, but I wasn't going to go D1 or go to a major university where they offered mechanical engineering degrees. So the next closest thing for me was just to major in physics, because it provided me a similar path educationally, but I got a chance to pursue some baseball for a little bit longer. Obviously, that has turned out to be a pretty nice life decision. It's changed the course of my life a little bit, but I always loved math. I always loved science. So physics, mechanical engineering were like things that I really enjoyed. It's been fun to get into some of the more advanced player development type things, using biomechanics and using pitch physics and things like that, and having a little bit of that background is certainly helpful for me, and understanding why the body is doing some of the things it likes to do, why the baseball wants to do certain things that it likes to do, based on the underlying physics there. And hopefully, for my seat, I try to take what is a fairly complex thing, in terms of human movement or in terms of ball flight, and simplify it down so that, the athletes can understand it, or maybe someone who doesn't have that background can understand it in really simple terms. And again, that allows for us to make progress in the actual skills, right? And the skills that are going to be displayed on the field. But it's definitely cool to, be able to use some of the things that I did in my education to bring that into the sport that I love, the game that's really dominated my life for as long as I can remember.
So, how demanding is your role, and how do you cope with the pressure that comes along with it?
It's definitely demanding from like a time standpoint, from organizational standpoint. From I think honestly the biggest thing is communication. It's probably the biggest separator between with if we were to do our jobs well or if we were to not do them as well is how well we can communicate with one another and how well we can communicate with our players. It takes a lot of time, a lot of consideration, a lot of understanding. Being able to rely on people that are experts in their field, I think certainly helps, cut some of that. We have a really good strength group. We have a really good medical group. We have a really good mental skills group. So, being able to work together to build plans for the players really helps. You don't have to be an expert in every single field, nor should you really expect to be, because there are so many layers to what make these athletes so successful. But yeah, it's a lot of times, a lot of organization, I think you get a little bit of an ebb and flow. Like we're coming up on spring training here, and that's when things are definitely going to be at the peak in terms of again, whether it's pressure or just demand. There's so many things going on. There's a lot of moving parts. We're trying to make sure that every player, every pitcher, for my seat at least, every pitcher is on their path to get ready for the season. That we're not missing anything. That not only are they getting physically prepared, but we're advancing their skills. We're getting them to a position where they're going to have their best opportunity to succeed at a really high level. They're coming out of the gates hot, that they're ready to go. So, it's yeah, definitely demanding. In terms of pressure, I think it kind of depends on how you want to, I guess, explain it away, or where you think the pressure comes from. There's definitely people that are in the sports media world like yourself and your group, and others that want to write about things and want to highlight things, and like all that stuff's really good. I think it's great to get perspective from those sources and things like that. But I think when it comes down to it, for us as coaches and as coordinators, the biggest thing for me is like, do I feel like I did everything I could for the player? And kind of regardless of what is the perspective of maybe some of the outside sources, like that's the driving force. Like you can dress something up and know that you didn't do a good enough job by your player, but to the outside observer, it probably looks good. And to me, that's not sufficient. Like I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can for the athletes. And if I do that and we feel good about, what that process looked like, how much effort we put into it, how much attention we put into it. If we do all of those things, then kind of the results will take care of themselves. And if they're good, then that's fantastic. Like everyone wins. And if the results don't come, like, at least we put everything we had into it. And again, we didn't shortchange these athletes. We didn't shortchange any of our coaches. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to rest easy, like you did everything you possibly could. Because again, you're working with people's lives. It's not, it's much as it is a business and all that stuff. Like it's such a personal thing too, that these players trust you with their careers, with their lives. Like you need to take it as such, and you need to be very particular about trying to give them the best information you possibly can, knowing that it's a responsibility that they're trusting you with what their livelihood is going to look like, what their family future is going to look like.
So, we know it is hard to pick one, but can you quickly summarize the biggest highlight of your baseball career?
Sure, yeah. The playing career or coaching career? The playing career one is probably not that exciting. Um, I think it's tough to pick one. I think the amount of players that we've had the opportunity to see advance and get promoted to the major leagues as a members of the Cubs over the last few years has, each one's really exciting. Each one brings their own like specific spin of like why it's important or why it's meaningful for you. And I don't want to single out any of those guys because like I care about all of them, but it's never going to get old, honestly. Like I just really enjoy seeing these guys get a chance to debut, getting a chance to pitch on the biggest stage, getting a chance to, achieve one of their dreams. A lot of the times that's just the first step is getting to debut and be in the major leagues. But it's really fulfilling to be able to see these guys do it. And, you don't do it for them saying thank you or doing anything like that. It's like when you get to see them smile, or when you get to see those guys, their family come down to the field after the game and they're hugging, and like that's the stuff that like it's pretty cool. Something that I honestly never thought I was going to have the chance to do, given what my baseball career was prior to joining here. But it's definitely one of those things that just each time you see it, it brings fulfillment to your heart, and it's never going to get old, I don't think.
So, Casey, how did you get into baseball, and when did you first develop an interest for baseball?
So I started playing for as long as I can remember ago. I have an older brother. He played, and we would play in the yard and do all that. So it's been in the family for our whole lives. Um, you know, I was pretty good when I was younger. I was always like skilled, but I wasn't the biggest. So when everyone was young, I would perform fairly well because it was more skill based. So in the travel years when I'm 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I was pretty good playing on some of the higher teams. But once everyone started to grow, I got left behind because I decided not to grow until I was 16 or 17. Um, but I think it provided me some more opportunity to fail, some more opportunity to learn different things. I think that stuff was all really helpful. But I think there was definitely a point where things turned for me, and it was probably um, the summer of my junior year when I got to play for my summer ball coach, Louis Player Delgado. He had coached my brother, still, a great mentor to me to this day, a guy that I love very dearly. I think he just, gave people the freedom to like, be themselves, to live up to their own skill set, and to not to feel like they have to be somebody else. And I think that changed my perspective quite a bit. And ultimately played for him for 2 summers. He was one of the people that pushed me to try and play college baseball, to go walk on at a D3. And if it wasn't for that, my life's probably way different right now. There's certainly not sitting in front of you, but probably just not that involved in baseball. So those 2 summers were pretty transformational for me. And then the other piece was I remember pretty distinctly. It was probably my fourth summer coaching some youth players. By youth, it's 15, 16, 17 year olds that I screwed up. I was coaching a group, and I wasn't valuing the players entirely. I wasn't valuing everyone on the team. I was valuing the high end player more than the last player on the bench type of a thing. And I made a comment when I was with the team, and like I could feel like that I hurt one of the players on the team with it. Um, and I had kind of become the guys that I didn't like playing for because I was only valuing the best player. And that wasn't what I learned from Louis, because he was the opposite. And I hadn't realized it yet until that moment. And it felt terrible. Like to this day, I can still remember like the shame that I felt for saying that, and making that player feel that way. And like, that's just something that I never want to have happen again. So, try to be more like Louis, and be more seeing what everyone can provide to the team, to the organization. Like, what are all these good things that they can bring you? And so, kind of again from a transformational process. I think those were some of the formative things from a baseball standpoint that have led me to the point that I am right now.
So, moving on to the Chicago Cubs, how do you feel working with such big stars like Kyle Hendricks, Justin Steele, Jameson Taillon in close quarters?
It was definitely intimidating at first. Like I didn't know what to expect, and I actually remember in my initial interview with Matt Torrey and Bobby Basham, who are director of PD and assistant director of PD at the time. I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to like get to these guys, because like I wasn't very good. I wasn't nearly as good as they were as players, or as a player, and like some of that, your ability can kind of buy you credibility when you're working with guys, like if you have a long playing history. And one thing that they both said was, if you care and you have some information that can help them, like the players are super receptive a lot of the time. And I think that with those three in particular, like it's 100% the truth. Like there aren't very many nicer people probably on the planet than Kyle Hendricks. He's one of the most genuinely good people you'll ever be around. He's extremely welcoming. JMO's been the same way. It's Steely's the same way. They're all just really good people. They care about you. You care about them. It's this. If there's a mutual respect. This, especially when you see how hard they work, like it makes you want to ensure that whatever you're talking about with them is going to be the best information you can possibly provide, that, it's meaningful, that it's touching on, conversations you've potentially had previously. Like all those things make it way more easy, or way easier to have those conversations and to work with those guys. And, the type of, I guess, bravado or aura that you might assume that they have because they are super successful on the biggest stage of sports. Like they just become, it's just Kyle, or it's just Jameson, or it's just Justin, or, Steely, as a lot of us like to call them. Like they aren't these larger than life guys. They're just really good people. And, they have a lot of the same interests as us off the field. They're watching football, they've got great families. Like, it just becomes more comfortable when you kind of strip away some of the bright lights that you might think happen because they're high end athletes.
So, another high-end athlete that we would like to talk about is Marcus Stroman, who just joined the
hmm
Yankees. So, what do you think about him as a pitcher?
I mean, it's tough to find someone that understands his body better than Marcus. Stroh was, his process is as dialed in as I think anyone I've ever seen, and it was really impressive to get the chance to watch him go through that in firsthand. He's got great body control. He knows what he's trying to do with the baseball pretty much every time he's throwing it. He can say, "Hey, I want to make this one sweep more. I want to make this one go more down," and like he does it. It's a ton of kind of next level skill that he's developed over time with a lot of hard work and a lot of reflection and awareness of what makes him successful. And then watching him go out and pitch and really be successful when he's pitching his game. And he's got he's got his rhythm. He's got some of the swagger out there. Like it's a super impressive thing. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm super excited to see what he can do with New York, and root for him because he's a good dude. But yeah, from my vantage point, more of like watching him and learning from him and kind of just observing his process hopefully will help me as we help the next waves of pitchers develop, because there's just stuff that he does that's so interesting and so good that again, as you build body control, like there's stuff that he's doing that you don't really ever see because it's maybe not on camera. It's just in his day to day, his throwing program or whatever, that give us ideas for how we can help that next group of guys in the minor leagues to control their bodies better and have good direction and really control their deliveries and things like that.
So, talking about the new stars coming in the Cubs have just signed Shota Imanaga, the Japanese
hmm
superstar. So, have you had any chance to talk to him?
I have not. No, he just got to Arizona, I believe, late last night. So he had a chance to play catch today at the complex, but it's kind of easing him into it. I know the travel wasn't very easy for him. It's a long process to get out here to Arizona. So looking forward to again getting to watch him work a little bit. Tons of success, obviously, in NPB. So there's going to be a ton of stuff to learn from him as well, and kind of what his process looks like. And yeah, really just excited to have him as part of the organization.
So, what do you think about Imanaga? Will he be able to translate the pitching from his experience to the MLB?
Yeah, I think you have to look at that track record and be pretty confident that this guy is going to be able to come in and have some success and be able to navigate lineups multiple times with the deep arsenal that he has and the command that he has of everything. It's a lot of things that you want to see when you're gonna look at projecting out a successful major league pitcher. Pitching at the highest level, there's a lot of experience. There's a lot of weapons that you can deploy to different hitters. There's going to be, the game planning opportunities are going to be really vast. So, it's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty successful, and obviously, hope that The transition here is smooth from a lifestyle standpoint, and then the baseball stuff can kind of take care of itself.
So, moving on to the rule change that happened last year, what are your thoughts on the pitch clock? Will it lead to more injuries? Being a pitching coordinator yourself,
Yeah, I think it's a tough question to um, definitively answer. I think there's probably some complicating factors with the pitch clock to recovery times and things like that. That again, might have an impact, but I don't know that anyone is going to be able to say like straight away this is causing more injuries. There's so many factors that go into injuries that happen with pitchers, that trying to filter it down to one thing is probably not that possible. It's definitely interesting, the pitch clock. Seeing minor league baseball before and minor league baseball after the pitch clock, I think was pretty jarring. I personally think that it makes for a cleaner game in the minor leagues. The players are moving with a little bit more tempo. In the major leagues, I don't know that it was felt terribly strongly outside of I think pitcher fatigue and things like that. I think coupled with the bigger bases, like that's where the running game stuff was probably the biggest impact. That's again not the physical side on pitcher fatigue. Um, I do think that there will be, as people get comfortable with bigger bases and the pitch clock and things like that PFP work and holding runners and using the clock effectively as a pitcher, not only for the base runners but even for hitters, will start to become a thing. I think as people get more comfortable with it, they'll find ways to make sure that they're utilizing it almost as another thing that they can manipulate to try and mess up timing for the hitters and for the base runners.
so how do you train your pitchers to face superstar sluggers? Some of the sluggers like Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, a lot of it will come down to just trying to build the best pitches that we can for them. Based on what their delivery looks like, trying to maximize what their body's capable of in terms of pitch characteristics, movement, velocity, kind of the sharpness of the break, things like that, as well as where they can execute it, and trying to get them comfortable executing to the pitches, executing the locations where their pitches will play the best, where they'll perform the best. If we can do that, I think we're putting them in a pretty good position. And then obviously, guys that have some ability to really command the ball and move it to different locations. You're looking at guys like Shohei or guys like Judge that you're probably going to try to pitch to certain zones where maybe they don't handle the pitches as well. And so you're trying to make sure that you want to match up like the best pitch for that pitcher is hopefully a pitch that those hitters don't handle as well. And again, trying to make that decision of like, where do we feel like we're going to have the most opportunity for success against these guys, and really get them committed to hitting those or executing those pitches in those locations. And again, you're always going to have some challenges because like if you do make mistakes, they tend to not miss them. But it doesn't benefit the pitcher a ton to go into it and be like thinking about not making a mistake because it might have damage done to it. Usually you're trying to get them really convicted, really confident in pitching to their strengths and to the scouting report and where those things really match up. Be really confident in it, and once the ball leaves your hand, it's kind of out of your hands at that point. Again, as cliched as that is, we're doing everything we can to prepare physically. We're preparing that scouting report, and then you go out there and you execute to the best of your ability. And again, if a really good hitter puts a good swing on a pitch, you kind of tip your cap. But if we execute our game plan the best we can with again the best versions of our pitches as we can, we want to give ourselves our best chance at that point.
So moving on to the off-season and trade market, So, what were your initial thoughts on the Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto trade?
With them signing with the Dodgers. Yeah, I mean, they're two really good players. Obviously, it's going to be a formidable group out there in LA, and it'll be again hoping that you got a guy like Shohei has a chance to recover healthy with his pitching future, hopefully coming back. And obviously, in the meantime, you're going to get an opportunity to see him swing the bat and do some really cool things there. But yeah, I think it's cool from a globalization of baseball standpoint to seeing, these superstars coming over to MLB and having success, but then, getting a chance to bring more players over, and really see what they can do. And, I think it'll be a really cool experience to see, how good can a guy like Yamamoto be, in his first couple of years. And I'm sure like the mentorship that's going to be possible from a guy like Shohei, who's been here now, for a player that's making that transition, will be like really invaluable for him.
So, in terms of the Chicago Cubs, if you would like to talk something about Cody Bellinger, he
Mm-hmm.
still have to sign a deal. So, where do you think that he'll be landing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna defer to some of the sports writers. I think they're dropping the names out there that they feel are the most likely outcomes. I don't get super plugged in with how agents and the GMs and president of baseball ops, all those conversations. I think Cody was an awesome person to have around last year. Obviously, the performance was fantastic, and did a ton for our club, on and off the field. So it's going to be really exciting to kind of see how things shake out. It's crazy to see how far how close to spring training we get, with some of these big name players still available. But I think it also provides some of that excitement going into spring training. These guys might sign, and then all of a sudden there's a different energy around a club. As everyone's getting down to the spring training complexes. And you're thinking one thing, and all of a sudden you've added some of these stars that are still out there, right before camp starts, and like how that can really galvanize the group that's coming down to get their workouts started. So, there's a handful of teams. Obviously, they're going to get an opportunity to add some difference makers, and Cody being one of them. And I'm in a lot of those spaces. I'm a fan just like everybody else, and like interested to see how things shake out.
So, talking about the players that are still available, uh, there's a high profile pitcher, Blake Snell.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you rate him? And is there any chance that are Cubs going for Blake Snell?
I mean, I'll answer the second one first because I don't know. That would be a better question for Carter or Jed, or someone who's making some of those decisions in the front office. But yeah, I mean, Snell's a super exciting pitcher. I mean, there's so much swing and miss. There's a ton of punch. He's this kind of guy that he's going to give you a good opportunity to win games, even when he's facing really good lineups, because there's just so much swing and miss on that in that arsenal. That breaking ball and the fastball pair so nicely, and obviously coming off the season that he had, he's got an opportunity to really build on that momentum and have a handful, more really good seasons. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, where he's going to land, but it's a really exciting pitcher. It's a really talented guy from everything that I've seen. Again, from afar, with him being obviously with the Padres.
So, what's your take on the Los Angeles Dodgers, a team filled with superstar players like Tyler Glasnow, Otani, Yamamoto? They can be a serious contender for the National League.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't know that you make all these moves if you're not going to be a serious contender. And it's cool to see some really good players coming together in a way like that. And they're going to be must watch TV a lot of the time. and it's cool. I mean, it's going to be a ton of high octane stuff. It's going to be a really deep lineup. There's going to be a lot of honestly still some youth depth that they'll have on the pitching side that are really talented guys. So they've put together a nice group over there, and I think they'll be in the top conversation for favorites to win the World Series. I think they'll likely have a successful regular season. The thing that's always interesting with baseball is like when you get to the postseason, weirder things can happen. The most talented teams don't always win the series. The most talented teams on paper, sometimes it's who's playing the best or who's the most talented at that moment because, some guys are in really good spots. So, there's still going to be some of that parity, despite the fact that they're going to be really talented. And, again, it'll be fun to watch. It'll be a good team to match up with during the season. And it's going to be a great challenge for our players to go out there and try to take on a team that's got that many star players.
So, with the addition of a superstar like Shota Imanaga and possibly more signings on the way, how do you feel about the Cubs' chance for the competition in the NL division?
I mean, I think you have to like it, just as much as anybody else. There's a lot of mainstays, a lot of players that are going to be really successful. They're going to contribute at a high level. I think the pitching group is rounded out really nicely with adding Neris and adding Shota. That's been great. We've got some young players that are going to be providing value from the farm system as well. I think there's a lot of options, which will be great for our new manager too. There's going to be some time for him to impact how things are going because of having guys with options, having some young players that can contribute. Being able to try and play guys that are potentially going really well at the time. And I think going into the season, if we're anything but optimistic about our chances, I think we're probably being a little too pessimistic. So, yeah, I think, again, we've done a nice job. The front office did a really nice job of constructing the roster up to this point. And obviously, there's potential for some more work to be done prior to, the season starting and trusting that our office group is going to make the best decisions that they can to put us in a position to, be successful, to be competing for, the crown at the end of the year.
So, talking about the farm system and prospect that you said, Paul Skeens is the top ranked pitching prospect right now. Do you think that he could leave an impact on the MLB level this year?
I mean, I think it would be hard to imagine that he couldn't. He had so much success at LSU, and SEC baseball is really good. It's a guy with good command. He's got three pitches that he's going to be competitive with. Obviously, it's going to be up to Pittsburgh what they believe is going to be the best path for him and the best things for his development and long term success. But I think there's good makeup there. There's plenty of physical talent there. Again, if they feel like it's the right thing for him to do, to be contributing with the big league club, like it's hard to bet against a guy that's had that much success.
So, talking about Paul Skeens and Garrett Cole. So, they were both the first picks by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Can the
Mhm.
youngster develop something like the Yankee ace has been?
I mean, again, I don't want to speak too much about something that I don't know that I'm most qualified to speak on, not knowing Paul that well. But yeah, I mean, you take a guy 1-1. I think you have to have the belief that he can be an impact guy, an impact dude in the big leagues, and obviously guys like Garrett Cole don't fall out of trees like the amount of success that he's had. So, I don't want to put something on Skeens that's, not fair to him. Like he's trying to be the best Paul Skeens he can possibly be. And, not necessarily trying to be Garrett Cole because, again, Garrett, there's only one of those out there. But, again, with all the talent that he has and, the success that he's had so far, and honestly how much he's progressed over the last couple of years, going from Air Force to LSU, and then really lighting the world on fire this year through the season and through the playoffs. It's I wouldn't put a ceiling on what he can do with what he's got going so far.
So moving on to the Cubs' performance in the offseason, what are your thoughts on trading Yancy Almonte?
Trading, yeah, getting Yency and Michael Bush. Um, yeah, I mean, they're two guys that are going to help, right? They're two guys that are going to help us in the big leagues. Yency's had some of the best years of any reliever of the last handful of seasons, so excited to have a chance to help him, capture those successes and hopefully repeat it here in 2024. And getting a guy like Michael Bush, who's performed really well and unfortunately hasn't gotten a ton of at bats, just due to again where the Dodgers are at in the big leagues. I think is going to be great for him. I think it's going to be great for the organization to have a guy that can go out there and produce like he can, with some positional flexibility. I think that matters a ton too. I'm excited for both parties. I think it's a really good match. I'm excited for Zaire and Jackson, going from Chicago to LA. They're going to go to a system that does well with their players. They're going to have a chance to continue to develop and hopefully have the best careers that those two can have too. They're great kids. They work really hard. I think it's one of those trades that ends up becoming pretty beneficial on each side. We're getting some needs met with the guys that we added, and we're giving the Dodgers a couple of really young, exciting players to add to their system.
So, do you think the Cubs have been a bit cautious this offseason? Will the bullpen and the rotation depth be enough to compete?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are very confident that we'll have the opportunity to compete. And I don't know if I would use the word cautious. I think again, knowing our office, they're very measured. They want to make sure that they're making good decisions. They're really objective. So that's why I think we end up having just longer decision making process a lot of the time. And they're going to do a really good job with the decisions that they do make. It just might take a little bit more time. There's not a lot of impulsive decisions that are going to be made by that group, and I think that's probably the right way to do it. When you're talking about some of the big dollars that get thrown around with players in free agency, they're trying to add really intelligently and make sure that we're building out the roster effectively to make sure that we're fitting. We're adding the pieces that we need to add. We're adding the depth that we need to add. That we're going getting the difference makers that we need to get, but without feeling like we're pressured into anything. It should all those decisions should be made with a level head, with a very objective approach, and I think that's the way that our office goes about it.
So, moving towards the Cubs farm system and the top prospects, Chicago Cubs leads the top 100 prospect list with 7 players. So, what's your thought on that?
I mean, I think it's a testament to our acquisition process with some of the trades that we made. Obviously it was difficult to move some of the players that we had in 21, but the office group did a great job of knowing who they wanted to acquire and going out and getting those players. And they've fit really nicely in our system, and they've developed into some really exciting players. And same thing with the amateur group, amateur and international, signing and drafting players that can come in and make an impact right away, but also guys that we felt we could help on the development side. Cade was probably not being seen too much as a seventh overall pick in 22, but obviously our amateur scouting group did a great job of vetting him and knowing that it was worth getting him at 7. And again, I've testament to our coaches who have helped him add some pitches, and testament to Cade with how talented he is, the way he goes about things. that he's been able to become, as highly touted as he is. Same things with a guy like Matt Shaw, who, I think if people knew where he was going to be at this point, like maybe he doesn't slide down to our pick last year, but a good worker, a really really good bat, a good player, and obviously getting some love from the publications about what they believe he's going to be able to accomplish. So again, it's definitely a group effort of making sure that we're acquiring the best players that we can acquire, and again, as coaches and coordinators, we're doing our best to ensure that we're providing these guys a platform to develop and fill the buckets that maybe they need to fill, whether it's strength and conditioning, or it's maybe in the training room mobility, or it's skill work or whatever. Like, we're trying to just make sure that we can give them whatever they need to be as good as they can be.
So moving on to Cade Hutton only. So there's only one pitcher in your uh, the seven top prospects. So how's your whole evaluation of Cade?
Yeah, I mean, Cade's a really talented arm. The fastball and slider were obviously what really caught people's attention. Got him some of that notoriety through the end of the regular season there with Oklahoma, into the Big 12 tournament, and then through the NCAA tournament when he really like turned it on. There's nothing not to like about where the fastball and slider are. I think the big thing was going to be developing those third pitches and fourth pitches. So there's going to be that opportunity for him to start and be really successful there. And obviously something that we took to right away. Cade was super open, really communicative, and that's super helpful on our side. He's sharing his thoughts. He's able to articulate what he feels. When he's feeling something out of his hand or in his delivery. So it's nice to be able to partner with him in that, and try to move everything forward together. So yeah, I think the sky's the limit for him. There's great makeup, there's a ton of work ethic, there's a really good athlete, there's some feel to shape the baseball and to create some different pitches. He was able to pick up two pitches this season, which is and be able to execute them, which is pretty awesome. I don't know how many guys are out there that can do that and really be able to like stabilize the shape and do all those things, while also being super competitive. And he just got better and better as the year went on. Some of that was we tried to manage his workload a little bit early, knowing it was his first full pro season, but he did a phenomenal job, adapting to the challenges that we put on, in terms of being a little bit shorter in his outings early on, where it's hard to develop a rhythm and all that stuff. But the high notes that he was able to hit there at the end of the season in Double A and leading that team, obviously along with a lot of other really good players, but leading that team to a championship and getting a chance to taste the victory and all the positive things that come with winning a championship with a group of guys. I think that's about as good as we could have asked for in his first full pro season.
So moving on to the future of Cubs baseball. Uh, what do you think of Craig Counsell as a manager? So do you think that he can be able to bring back the World Series glory to the Chicago Cubs?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you go out and make the move that was made if you don't believe that. And in the exposure I've had so far to Counsell, like he's as advertised. He's really sharp. Again, he's another person that's making sure that like the decisions that he makes are really well thought out. That he's thinking through every angle. He's not getting flustered by anything. Like there's a lot of really positive things, and not only from a managing standpoint, from like what is he going to do for this organization. I think the impact that he'll make on a lot of the people around him just by his presence and his consistency, kind of how he goes about his process. Like it's going to make a lot of coaches around him better. A lot of the people around our player development system are going to get better by getting a chance to see him kind of go through his work. And yeah, it's an exciting situation for us to be in. I think we double down on trying to make sure that our players are as prepared as they can be to go up and contribute. because we want to make sure that not only are our players having success, but we want to win on that big stage. And it's that's the ultimate goal, is why we do all the work, is so that we're best supporting that major league staff, so that they have a chance. They have options. They can make moves late, for pinch hitters, or for substituting, pitchers in for the right spots, whatever it might be. That we're getting these players ready to be those guys that can go out and get the job done, in tough situations. And then you get trusting that council is going to put them in the best positions to succeed.
So, what are your thoughts on the future of Cubs pitching?
I think we're continuing to evolve. I like the progress, obviously, that we've made over my first 4 seasons here, 5 seasons here. There's still plenty to learn. I think our athlete pool is awesome. We have a lot of guys that work really hard. I think we've put in place some good systems that can help kind of keep everybody getting better and getting better at the right things. But as a group, as a pitching department, we want to continue to push the envelope ourselves and get better and learn more. Work with our R&D team to see if we can find some ways to continue to help our players get better without or that maybe aren't known publicly. And that's great to have that partnership and have the kind of people that we have in the R&D group, and how smart they are, helping us out quite a bit. So we're definitely excited with where we are. There's still room to grow. Kind of the way that we like to say is, like, nobody quite has this all figured out yet. I think if they did, like, it would get out because people talk enough. So we're taking the information that we have, and trying to use it the best that we can to help the players get as good as they can. And I think we have a good group of pitchers that are responding really nicely to that. I think with the depth that we have, the amount of players or pitchers that we have that are able to contribute at the big league level right now, are going to continue to be able to contribute at the big league level. And hopefully we have some guys that really take steps forward, and all of a sudden you've got contributors that become regulars that become all-stars that become the Cy Young type. Like that's the ultimate goal, is being able to really positively impact the major league club and get guys that really perform well. And there's definitely some guys in the pipeline right now that have that potential, that are looking really good. But I think more than anything right now, the amount of depth that we have is really good, because again it just provides us more bites at the apple. The more quality players that we have, the more quality pitchers that we have, the more guys that we have that are going to be contributors in the major leagues, the higher probability we have that some of those guys become all-stars, some of those guys become Cy Young type players.
Yeah, so it's a very long season. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
162 games, playing day in day out. So, uh, how do you really cope with that, and how do you train your pitchers to be actually on top of their game?
That's a good question. We do try to individualize our prep plans, our off season buildups, depending on what the demands might look like during the season. Um, and obviously, some of that comes from working with our S&C group and our medical group, and figuring out how these guys respond to stress. Are they someone that gets looser? Are they someone that gets tighter? Because that'll adjust a little bit, how we want to build them up. But I think what we've had some success with is actually, like, getting these guys started earlier, building a bigger foundation, a better foundation of work capacity prior to the season starting, so that they're able to withstand some of the stresses that come from the season. Maybe adding velocity or taking on a little bit more workload. We try to gradually progress, how much more someone would throw compared to their previous seasons. So, we're taking into account as many things as we can to try to lay out this plan. It's not perfect, but using what we can objectively measure, with shoulder strength and things like that. We try to lay out as successful a plan as we possibly can. Um, and again, it's still just hoping for the best in some capacities because again, injuries are pretty unpredictable. There's some of the workload ratio stuff that's out there helps you give yourself the best opportunity to put these guys in a position to be successful for the whole season and get everything be able to take on their full inning workload.
So, how would you rate the 2023 season, and what's your expectation from the 24 season?
I think the 2023 season was overall, it was a good one. I think we probably overperformed a little bit. Obviously, the ending was really disappointing and it stung. Um, and I think especially with where we were going into the final month, like with really high probabilities of making the playoffs, like that probably made everything feel a little bit worse. But at the end of the day, an organization like this, we're not necessarily looking for the moral victories. Like we expect to be in the postseason. And I think that, again, seeing how things have unfolded so far this offseason, like the expectation is that we're going to be there. And I think the thing that's been really encouraging from the 2023 season and kind of how it finished and being a little disappointed with how things went. There's a hunger to the group of guys right now that we've had a lot of players training in Arizona here for the off season, getting themselves ready. Like there's a really like palpable determination, I think, with how guys are going about their work and going about their business. And I think that's going to make a pretty big difference too. Just there's they feel it. They carry that disappointment as heavily as anyone else. A lot of these players do, and they want to make sure that nothing like that's going to happen again. And it's been really fun to watch. How these high end athletes, high end competitors respond when things don't go well. Because a lot of times, they get more determined, they work harder, they refine their process, and they're finding every opportunity to put themselves in a really good place coming into 2024.
So, moving on to the last section. So, what are your some of the predictions for 2024? Like Cy Young prediction.
I mean, if I don't go with a homer pick with Justin Steele, I feel like I'm probably not doing ourselves service. But having him see some love at the end of the season for Cy Young was unbelievable. And again, you talk about competitive people and hardworking people. Like there's not going to be a lot of people that will outwork Steely or are going to be out competing Steely. So I'd love to see him um, you know, have another really strong season to back up what he was able to accomplish last year. And again, if things go a little bit different down the stretch, like he's probably in that conversation with Snell. So that's I'll put my money on that horse all day.
And what's your prediction for the AL Cy Young?
Ooh, in the AL, that's a good question. I don't have a great answer, to be honest with you. Uh, the the pitching gets to be pretty volatile on that side of things. If I had to venture, just seeing Pablo Lopez, in the playoffs and how good he was looking, and knowing it's probably a little bit of an under the radar pick, but he was really really impressive in that playoff outing against Houston, and with some of the progress I think that he's made in some of his stuff, like that would be. I think there should be some love coming his way for an award like that.
And so, for my last question, what's your prediction for the timeline of Shohei Ohtani? What do you believe that till when he'll be able to pitch?
Uh, yeah, not knowing enough about the injury and the procedure that he had to go through, I don't want to make a strong prediction there. It'll be great to see him hitting while he's getting his arm back in shape. I think a lot of good baseball fans would love to see him back in, after this season, into 2025. But, that the Dodgers are, they're a really smart organization. They're going to be, they're going to take really good care of Shohei and his timeline. So whatever they end up deeming as the appropriate, build up from that surgery and, what he had done, he's going to be in the best place to come back and pitch and hopefully be successful again because, it's a supreme talent. It's some stuff that, hopefully people don't take for granted, how good that guy is and what he's providing to the world and the baseball community. So, hopefully the process goes clean, everything goes really well. I know, again, the Dodgers are going to put him in the best position to come back at full strength, whenever the time is right there. But yeah, getting a chance to see him do his thing for a few more seasons would be, again, as a baseball fan, just something that I think a lot of people should appreciate because I don't know how frequently we're going to see players that can do the things that he does. And like when you're in the moment, you don't always appreciate it because it just becomes normal to see some of the players. There's other players out there that are doing stuff that are going to end up in the Hall of Fame. Written in books. There's going to be stuff written about them forever. That's phenomenal. And while we're here and we're getting to watch it live, like taking a step back and appreciating it, like that's. There's some really cool things that are happening in the game right now, and Shohei is definitely one of them.
So, Casey, thank you so much, and for having me this opportunity to talk to you has been an eye opener for me. As a hardcore MLB fan, we have so much respect for the people who are involved in the game to make the game better with every passing day. And and thank you to many more out there. Like we get to see our beloved sport getting better and better every day. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that we get many more interactions like this in future.
Yeah, I appreciate the offer to jump on the show, and appreciate your time and being flexible with when we met so that we could get this taken care of.